Hello, welcome to Being Reintegrated. I'm Tim Wright. We're reading Divonne the Divine. Sometimes you get these on YouTube for free, sometimes you don't. You got to go to Being Reintegrated Patreon. We're starting at the voice that cries in the desert. There is a footnote that I discussed in the other videos. Yeah, if go pick up the book at kimpublishing.com. We're publishing this one at Lulu, and super excited to bring you episode 2 of Divonne the Divine. It says, where can this happiness be found? After which all beings sigh, and for which the entire nature seems to have been in vain labor since the beginning of the centuries. In which region does this reality of bliss dwell, whose fleeting shadow constantly deceives our hopes and leaves us at the end of a more or less laborious journey, only with the feeling of the vanity of life? These are the questions that successive generations have asked themselves, one after another, up to the present day. This is the enigma that each one, embarking on the race, believes themselves destined to solve, until the moment when, disillusioned by melancholic and painful experience, they are forced to admit that they have not been happier than their predecessors. Yikes! Divonne just hitting us hard. This is in Jung's Red Book, by the way, where he talks about us coming to the realization of our own capacity. We'll just leave it at that. But yeah, I happen to study Jungian psychology, so in the Red Book, when he talks about that, he's talking about a confrontation of the spirit of the times personality with the spirit of the depths personality. So I love this topic, but it's super difficult to understand from the language of the spirit of the times. So it's easy to think that, the person talking about it doesn't know what they're talking about. Because the spirit of the times refuses to acknowledge the language of the spirit of the depths. And this is what Jung talked about in Ion. He said, I got a book a long time ago by Barbara Hanna, which was one of Jung's, good helpers or something, and the Eth Institute stuff. So Barbara Hanna says that basically in Ion, he goes to a place where he says that there's a language that takes over and splits our personality. One is a language that's based on that side of the personality, and another is based on the other side of the personality. The one that understands and has more of a, cellular memory and body and nature and stuff. That one splits away from the conceptual one, which is talked about in Descartesian philosophy as the res cogitans and the res extensa, also mentioned by Charles Jameau as the primary reason for Masonic initiation. However, the feeling and the need for this happiness are so urgent in man that the experience of all the centuries seems useless to him. And that right there is a pretty good. I used AI to check out Divonne against the Red Book to see if it was really done by him. And so on entry number 13, you'll see, and I also see that the Red Book has some cryptic and some philosophic divisions. So this is not a cryptic. This is a philosophic. Number 13 says, all men are prophets without knowing it. So that's the prophecy that we're trying to bring about, that we have a need for this happiness, and it's so urgent that the experience of all the centuries seems useless. The spirit of the times. In vain, all the monuments surrounding him cry out. None of those who preceded you reached the goal. The efforts of so many men were useless, who were only envied because of their true soul's state was unknown. The researches and vigils of so many philosophers and moralists were superfluous. Ah, my favorite word. No matter, he does not hesitate to believe that he alone will not be deceived, that to him alone, I say, is reserved the discovery of this pearl of great price. Now, in the version that I translated, there is pagination there. So you'll see a bracketed number 2 here. It's not by mistake. It's not AI. It's clunky, but what it does is it preserves original pagination from the document. So you'll just have to bear with that, because it happens in French that it doesn't paginate according to English pages. So, what's one page in French is only 3/4 of a page in English. So it will always look clunky when you're doing this kind of pagination, which is followed by the scholars in Illuminism at the Society of Martinez de Pasquale. I mean, it's a bracket. You can get over it. If that detracts you from reading such a rare work as Divonne's, then I'm sorry. That's just how it looks. And we have what Matt Ravignon talked about, deontological responsibility as researchers to do this right. So, as a pseudo scholar, as just a researcher, I don't even want to go to scholar, because then you have to take up the scholar mantle, and you're going to get hit for that because you have to defend your theses. Anyway, it's a deontological responsibility, as Matt Ravignon talks about it in his Cohen book, to do the right thing, to mention the right stuff, to present the proper material. And I believe that that's pagination too. Because not many people have talked about Divonne, but if they ever do take this up as part of their doctoral work, then, they're going to need pagination. And they're going to reference the French pagination, and you're not going to be able to find it in English. So that's why it looks clunky. Sorry about that. Pressed by this powerful need, man enters without hesitation into the race of life. And gathering all his strength to reach the goal he sets for himself, he does not even think to suspect the possibility of being deceived in his hopes. Jesus. On the contrary, from this need by a natural logic, all unanimously conclude, without having communicated with each other, the reality of the object toward which they are so irresistibly driven, and it is thus that they bear witness to the existence of the supreme source of all happiness, a testimony that all the opposing reasoning, which in time gives birth to the contradictions of the false order that surrounds us, cannot shake. Whew! Wow! Divonne hitting hard. I particularly am moved by that, because you're seeing that this philosophy that, I'm pretty much an advocate of, and I believe the Cohen did, which was, man of desire needs to see what exactly is the thing he's desiring and who he becomes when he's desiring. Let's put it that way. It says that he does not even think to suspect the possibility of being deceived in his hopes. I'm a big proponent of the Eastern system of Vajrayana and the Dzogchen philosophy of bone shamanism. So when we're seeing something like that, that is directly what they talk about in Bardo experience. And Chongyang Trompas, exposition of what it's like to be in a Bardo experience, he talks about the division between hope and fear. And this is what Divonne is saying, is that the opposing reasoning, which in time gives birth to the contradictions of the false order that surrounds us, cannot be shaken. It's so deep. I mean, this is some really philosophically heavy material. So I love it, and it's pretty much like the Dalai Lama talking here through the West. Universal need to be happy. If you bear witness that there exists a supreme source of happiness, you are also the demonstration that it is itself the generating principle of man, since every being is attracted by the source that has engendered it, and desire and attraction can only exist between things that are analogous and belong to the same nature. And this is what the Dalai Lama says, not to propagate anybody's philosophy, but Divonne is saying it. He's saying it, 200 years before the Dalai Lama said it, that everybody is seeking happiness. They just don't know how to find it. There's nothing wrong with the need to want to be happy. We have a deeply cellular need to avoid pain. However, most of us don't know how to do it. Thus, we see all earthly substances gravitate toward the earth that produced them, and each element strives to return to the center from which it came. Universal need for truth. Wow. So one was for happiness, the next is for truth. Not only do you testify that there is a transcendental, imperishable light, but you also attest that darkness, obscurity, shadows, and doubts are contrary to the true nature of man, and that within him lies the seed of this universal light. God, it's so good. It's so good. That says to me that the truth will set you free, but it's going to not feel like the freedom, which is something we've become accustomed to. I mean, I'm trying to be light here and gentle, but this is Divonne's writing, not mine. I'm just reading it on being reintegrated. Thank you so much for coming here and checking all this out. Need in man to understand the reasons for everything, to penetrate to the central laws of all beings, and to manifest nothing that not be the product of an intelligence. You bear witness that there is an eternal principle of supreme and universal intelligence, and that the spirit of life in man is a direct emanation of it, according to the very testimony of Moses, and God breathed into him, man, the breath of life. He's talking about all the man of desire needs. Insatiable need to admire. Not only are you a demonstration that above us exists an order of things capable of satisfying this unquenchable appetite within us, but you also bear witness that we belong, by the rights of our origin, to the realms of eternal and divine wonders. That we have a natural affinity and a necessary analogy with this inexhaustible and eternal source of admiration, and that there will be no rest for us until we have ascended it. Now, of course, I'm going to plug a book. The Cohen Instructions has a treatise of admiration in it. It's been argued that this treatise, in the Spirit of Prayer, is by Saint Martin, by Stanislaw de Gaida. He says that this is Saint Martin's work. Favre said it was Divonne's. We translated it. But you're seeing a little bit of a overlap here with Saint Martin and Divonne. So I don't know if they're completely separate. Finally, the need for an unlimited life of which man alone has the idea. Not only do you proclaim that there is a source of imperishable, infinite life, but, dare I say, you also attest that we have always been because we desire to always be. Oh, God! I bow to you, Divonne. Moreover, if we think of limits, if we have the idea of destruction and dissolution, it is only because we are bound to an order of things which, having had a beginning, must also have an end. And the repugnance and pain that these thoughts cause us are the result of the conflict within us between the law of transient and destructible life, to which we are accidentally bound, and the law of eternal life, which constitutes us fundamentally. Thus, to the extent that man sinks further into the false order, and identifies with perishable things, the inconveniences of the temporary realm becomes increasingly sensitive for him, and death more dreadful, while on the contrary, all the troublesome and burdensome qualities of the visible nature gradually fade away, and even the very idea of that so greatly feared death gradually disappears for the one who fixes his gaze on the higher realm and works to draw closer to it. May you be exorcised from these needs and their distortions.